Hello, people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Mac with Mac Commentary and Bob. How are you doing today, Bob?
I'm doing good, Mac. Thank you. How about you?
Doing good as well. Getting a lot of rain, so I haven't been able to get my run in today. But I'll probably get out there later, early this evening, see what I can do. Bob, today we're going to talk a little about the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, which occurred in the Greenwood neighborhood of Tulsa back in 1921. And this is amazing that the three survivors of that particular Holocaust or massacre or whatever you want to call it, Bob, have their trial that they had in the Oklahoma court has been dismissed. And one of the surprising things about that, the same judge that ruled that the lawsuit could proceed is the very same one who dismissed the particular lawsuit. And the lawsuit is centered around what they argued that their opportunities were stripped from them when the city's Greenwood neighborhood, known as Black Wallstreet, we've heard a lot about that, right, Bob?
Right.
Was burned down by a white mob in 1921. Hundreds were killed. I'm told somewhere between 200 and 300 people on that day. And you'll see some videos, some pictures of that here shortly. On that day of that violent attack, and years of building successful Black businesses were erased. However, despite here in Randall, is Leslie Benenfield Randall, Viola Fletcher, and her brother Hugh Van Ellis. Now, Leslie is 108 years old. Viola is Fletcher is 109, and Mr. Ellis is 102. And these, he dismissed their lawsuit for reparations on Friday, July 7th. Now, the attorney for them said, "We were forced to plead this case beyond what is required under Oklahoma standards, which is certainly a familiar circumstance when Black Americans ask the American legal system to work for them. And now Judge Wall has condemned us to languish on Oklahoma's appellate docket." A statement read by attorney Damario Solomon Simmons. Like so many Black Americans, we carry the weight of intergenerational racial trauma day in and day out. The dismissal of this case is just one more example of how America's, and specifically Tulsa's legacy of racial harm, racial distress, is disproportionately unjustly borne by Black communities. And during an interview, Solomon Simmons revealed he learned of the Wall's decision on Friday night and was surprised. CNN noted that part of the shocking reaction to the ruling was because the judge who dismissed the lawsuit decided last year that the suit could move forward. They waited 102 years trying to get justice and reparations for themselves, their families, and our community here in Tulsa. And for me to get the phone call, I could not believe it. We were completely blown away, the attorney added. We will be moving forward with an appeal on this case to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Bob, before we get in and start talking about this or that, I just wanted to give a little overview of what's happened there in Tulsa at this particular time to make it become newsworthy, But I think what I like to do, Bob, I like to see if we can take a look at the at a video 1921.
What happened during that 18-hour period?
18 hours. That's all it took. The Earth had not even fully turned on its axis before this prominent part of Black history here in America was destroyed.
18 hours and people's livelihoods just completely uprooted like that. I imagine just in those 18 hours, just chaos on the ground. I don't know if you can kind of paint a picture in terms of what it was like for people, Black people living there. I mean, was it just a constant state of fear?
Following the Red Summer of 1919, there needed to be an igniter or an event tossed on the embers. And that trigger event happened on May 30th, 1921. It was an incident that involved two teenagers.
Well, this was Dick Rowland, who was a shoe shine boy. They think he was 19 years old. And there was a Sarah Page, who I believe was 17 years old, a divorcee. They were in an elevator in a downtown building.
And then he's going into the one place, the Drexel building, where he can go to the restroom. She opens it, he gets in, appears to have stumbled on the walkway between the outside of the elevator and getting on, stumbles and grabs her hand. She screams, maybe hit him in response to you're on me or whatever. And someone hears this in the Renberg's building. So they hear this, and this is reported as an attack. And so this creates the narrative going through the community that a Black man has attacked a white woman.
Renberg's employee called the police, and she said, actually, I've been assaulted.
The local newspaper here, the Tulsa Tribune, running this article claiming Rowland had assaulted the 17-year-old white elevator girl. Page had refused to press charges, but the article read like a call to action, with the headline saying, quote, "Nab Negro for attacking girl in an elevator." But many survivors remember a second article in the Tribune that day.
The Tribune had come out and told about the incident of Dick Rowland, the shoeshine boy, in the elevator of the Drexel building. And they said, it looks as if there will be a lynching tonight.
Notes were put on people's houses all throughout North Tulsa and surrounding counties. It said, "Ian, you be out of town by May 30th or else."
To date, no copies of the second article headline exists anymore. In fact, all microfilmed copies of the Tulsa Tribune from that day have been purged, adding to that conspiracy of silence. And no matter what the headline said, it inflamed a large crowd at the courthouse where Rowland was.
The white community comes in big numbers when he's arrested because of this, and the Black community comes, and basically there's a back and forth between the communities of go home, we'll take care of this, and then of course this concern that maybe this will not be taken care of in the right way. And there were lynchings that had occurred, not just for Black people, but for whites for law breaking. And so the Black community is concerned, and they're wanting to watch out for Dick Rowland. Not necessarily because they loved Dick Rowland, but because they did not want to see another Black person who was lynched for something that he did not do. And those who did know him said this was not some kind of character that he would have.
The two groups would meet in mayhem. Survivor Robert Fairchild describes being confronted by the white mob.
I said, "What are you doing with that pistol?" He said, "I'm going to use it if I need to." And he said, "No, you give it to me." And he tried to take it from this fellow, Barry. And when in the scuffling, they started shooting with one another.
Newspapers claimed only Black people were armed, but the only person at the time to be wounded by gunfire was a Black man. That man, shot in the abdomen, writhed in pain while a white mob blocked medics from taking him to a hospital. Onlookers would watch as that man died in the street. Less than 100 feet away, the body of another Black man was found lying in the street. That story told by Ed Miller, who was just arriving for work when the massacre began.
I went around the corner at the side door. There's a Black man behind me. He's trying to get in, too. We're both trying to make the same door, and no luck. And I said, I think I'll go ahead try that for the alley. By that time, some fellow turned around the corner and pulled a gun on us down there. And I said, hey, I'm white. I knew he was shooting at the black man. I said, give me a chance to get around the alley. So he said, make it snappy. So I did. By that time, the black boy, he decided he'd cross over and go to the other alley. And he got in the middle of the street where this fellow shot him. And he shot him there right on the streetcar track.
And things went from bad to worse within a few minutes.
There's a hill here, a standpipe hill, but there was a machine gun on standpipe hill, and they were firing down on men, women, and children. Wholesale murder.
In the midst of the massacre, the young girls of St. Mary's Catholic School were having graduation ceremonies.
All of a sudden, we heard all these shots, and they were shooting through the windows, and shards of glass came down, and we were just scared to death.
Ruth Sigler Avery Parker would become a vital part in telling the story of what happened in Tulsa on that day.
And I heard this peculiar, heavy movement of cars, and it wasn't ordinarily like that. And I looked out and I saw 2 truckloads of bodies going by.
Even the black churches weren't spared. Rumors swirled about ammunition being stored at Mount Zion Baptist Church.
The report out that church was built to start a riot, which was the biggest fault that ever was done. That church was built to worship and praise God, and we'd have a decent place to worship.
And that church, dedicated just a month before, gutted. The entire Tulsa Police Department was called out. They were stationed in a line between black and white Tulsa. Their orders, pretty simple: keep the black people from coming back into white Tulsa. Meanwhile, the Oklahoma National Guard was put on standby. Shortly after midnight, a telegram sent to the military authorities in Oklahoma City. It read, a race riot developed here, several killed, unable to handle situation, request that National Guard forces be sent by special train, situation serious. As the National Guard made its way to Tulsa by train from Oklahoma City, a fierce gun battle was raging in Greenwood. Massacre survivor Clarence Fields was a World War I veteran. He served without firing one shot. And he only returned to Oklahoma to be engaged in a more vicious battle.
I was shot at. The bullet hit the wood, and the splinters split me into my arm. Every block or two, we'd meet some officer, some captain of the group, would say, get those hands up,
With hands held high, black men, women, and children were corralled like animals into the convention hall. All this while planes were being used as weapons against them.
And I was coming down Greenwood, and the bullet hit the girl on the floor, down the pavement.
An airplane came and dropped. I guess we would call them firebombs now, gasoline in jugs and set them afire,
Many refute the claims that planes were used, but historians are certain something was being dropped from the sky.
Well, I
I
didn't
mean,
look at it like that back. That's just my home state. I'm from Oklahoma. That's the way Oklahoma was and Oklahoma is today.
well, I've worked out in Oklahoma, Tulsa, matter of fact, for about 3 months. That was a long time ago. I was out on an audit out there, but I enjoyed it out there during that time period, but I didn't know anything about Greenwood or Massacre, or I didn't even know anything at that time about the Black Wallstreet. And just like the people who lived there, they didn't know anything about it. It's just amazing that we began to see these things, and research has shown that there were many other cities like Tulsa with communities that was very akin to what was going on in the black communities, like in Atlanta, Wilmington, North Carolina, Rosewood, Florida, just to name a few. And even as today, there's a city in Mississippi right now, I can't think of its name, but they are having it's practically all black, but they are controlled over there by white police chief. I think that might be they're doing something about that now. I understand, but that was just recently they started doing anything about that. They're controlled by everybody that's in leadership. They're white, I believe it's what I read. But that is changing now. But some of the things that just struck me here, Bob, was how these 6 veterans went there and took up arms, A lot of times they want to say that blacks are so docile, or whatever that term is for being very easygoing and laid back, and don't do anything, don't try to fight back. Well, our history shows that blacks have tried to fight back, but there's only so much fighting back that you can do when you're up against weapons like guns, cannons, and as you saw, they even had the military there on top of a building there with what I recognized as a 50 caliber machine gun. And these bullets on there, Bob, they would just destroy you, if they hit you, But these 6 veterans, they did take up arms and they tried to do something to help that kid out, but they didn't expect that. Like you said, I think you made a good point the other day when you made the statement that 80% of the Caucasoids look at blacks as the N-word. And this is quite typical to what happened there, because these guys were thinking that, hey, this was just going to keep back these Ku Klux Klans guys. But that whole community came down on them, Bob. Even the police turned against the blacks and got on the side of this mob. So they want to call them a mob, but these people, they were pretty much organized. I mean, you had the military to come in there, and they were against the blacks as well, So I want to applaud those veterans who happened to, at least they tried to do something. I mean, that's more than what I see a lot of us doing today, Bob. We're not trying to do anything to protect our own, just like the situations that we've been seeing happening in these United States over the last 20, 30 years or so. And the other thing, if this isn't, they talk about reparations, Bob. They say, well, why should we give them reparations? Now, this is a clear-cut case right here, because they say, well, the people that's living today, they did not enslave anybody. And then the people that's living, the slave descendants, they weren't enslaved, so why should they get any reparation? Now, here's a case here where these people actually are living today, Bob, and their offsprings are living where their whole community was destroyed, businesses. And you can see it, and these people are still living, and yet they don't want to repair their suffering that they went through during that period of time. And to me, I say it's sad, and that we don't have any type of reparations for those citizens, just as we don't have reparation for all of the descendants of slaves in this and throughout these United States. So what do you think, Bob? Do you think that these 3 or 4 people I named there, 3 people, matter of fact, do you think they deserve reparations for what happened?
Well, I don't think it's a question of whether they deserve it or not. Because I look at this thing a little bit differently today than I used to look at it. Because I know today that the Negroid in America is never, and I use the word never, ever going to get a square deal or a fair shake in this country. And I was thinking about this the other day. There's supposed to be 40 million of us in America. Well, let's just say 10 million of us, or 25%, are doing okay. I mean, we're working every day. We've got a mortgage. We got 2 cars. We got a kid in college. So we're doing all right. So what the hell do we care about the other 30 million, the other 75%? And the Caucasoid knows that. He could see it every day. I mean, we elect politicians every 4 years to run this government. And how many Negroids, for example, right now, you've got a big international meeting going on in Lithuania called NATO. And how many Negroids do you see in that crowd? I don't know. I mean, I guess some of them may be Negroids that look like Caucasoids, but the ones I've seen, I haven't seen any Negroids. So it doesn't surprise me that those people got their case thrown out. That judge that said to let it go forward, I think perhaps they let it go forward in order to be able to pour some more misery on their wounds. So, well, we'll let the niggas think that they're going to get a good, clean shake out of this to make our justice system look right. But when it gets right down to it, they ain't getting nothing. And that's what happened. And that's the way America works. I mean, that is the America that I know. And I'm from Oklahoma, man.
Right.
So I know Oklahomans. You know, they'll smile and pat you on the back and tell you you're going. And you talk to any brother or sister from Oklahoma, we pretty much have the same attitude. We don't expect anything out of the Caucasoid in Oklahoma. That's why you have so many black towns in Oklahoma. There's about 13 or 14 of them. The one that I'm most familiar with is Boley, Oklahoma, because Boley always had a big rodeo, and I used to love to go there and watch the rodeo as a kid, and then as I got older. And there's many more, but my point is, just as it is in Oklahoma, so is it throughout America. Most the Negroids that are doing all right, they could give a damn less about people getting shot or dragged out of cars or slapped around. That's not affecting them. You know, they're taking their summer cruises. Everything is hunky dory with them. So I see this today in a different light, and it's that way, and it's not going to change, in my opinion.
Well, you hit on some good points there, Bob. I don't, and I agree with you in your observation and your assessment of the situation. But let me ask you this: what can Black Americans do if this case is not moved up, accepted by the Oklahoma Supreme Court? What can blacks do? I'm talking about the Black Americans. I'm just trying to look for some type of a solution to the problem, Bob, that in the hands of the blacks.
Right. Well, I think we can continue talking about it and pretty much resign ourselves to the fact that this is the way it is in America. This is America in all of its red, white, and blue. And that's about it. I mean, there's nothing else. It's a waste of money. You could appeal it to the Oklahoma Supreme Court, then you take it to the Circuit Court of Appeals, and then you go from there to the Supreme Court, and you'll get the same answers, because you're dealing with a system that has relegated the Negroid in America to second-class citizenship under the guise of being first class. And so it's not going to change anything.
Well, isn't this what Dr. Claude Anderson talks about, is that when you start building businesses and you vertically go up, you get the businesses out there, and then you economic base anyway. And then after that, you get your education together, and then you get your politics together. And when you got your base together for economic, and you got some type of economic power in your communities, then you can work on the education, you can work on the politician, and you can also start doing like what they are doing. Like, it appears to me somebody must have paid that judge off to reverse his stance there,
Uh-huh.
And this is where, when you've got money in a community, you able to buy your officials. I mean, you look at what is happening in these United States right now. Look at the military-industrial complex. They've practically bought all of those politicians in Washington. And then you go down and you look at your local politicians, and you look in the communities there, and you'll see that those road construction companies have bought those politicians. The garbage collectors companies, they have bought the politicians in their cities as well.
And that's what I mean when I say that's America. America, in fact, although it presents itself as the most pristine, governed country in the world, it is the most corrupt, duplicitous organization in the world. And the way it keeps itself in that fashion, and it's, what has become a light bulb for me, is I look at the way, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Negroid or a Caucasoid. I'm coming to realize that too. The way they're treating our former president, Donald J. Trump. That guy was a typical Horatio Alger American. His father had a successful business, and he turned it over to his son, and his son continued to have a successful business. But then he decided he wanted to get into politics. And when he got into politics, he's the one thing that he said that is, in my opinion, that's causing him all of the torment today, is that he was going to drain the swamp. And the swamp has been here. The swamp is the one that brought us over here. And the swamp is the one that keeps us under control. So if you see them do that to a Caucasoid, you know that they don't have any empathy or sympathy or any kind of a feeling in their hearts for you as a nigger, Bob. So stop tricking yourself. I mean, look yourself in the mirror and say, wait a minute, what is it about you, Bob, that this guy standing in the mirror, say I'm in a public bathroom, and this guy in the mirror next to me, he's just smiling, and the guy standing there at the door passing out towels when you get ready to leave. And when you get ready to leave, you got water and stuff on your hands and your face. You don't get shit. So why did he give him a towel and he didn't give you one? Because you a nigga, man. And when that happens to you enough, you come to the reality that this is where I am. I'm in America, and they tell me I'm an American, but I'm not. I don't get treated like an American. Why? Because my skin color is different. That's just that simple to me today.
Well, I think we keep harping on the same theme here, Bob, and I think if maybe somebody will get it out there, and more people will start to saying the same thing here, is that like you pointed out, there's rightfully so, that the people out there who are doing well, they're driving they all like to get these big SUVs, and they're doing quite well in there. They have a decent home. They're up to their neck in debt. They're going to work every day, and they're trying to pay off these things. They don't have time to worry about that person down in the hood right there. Their relatives down there, because they struggling trying to keep up with the Joneses on the streets, but there's those other ones out there, Bob, the other blacks out there who have done quite well, whether it's off the backs of blacks or whether because they had certain talents or whatever. And you'll find that most of the blacks out here that has any type of money, Bob, they're either entertainers, movie stars, singers, actors, or whatever, or sports figures. They're celebrities. That's for the vast majority. There are other ones who have done well also, and they're continuing to do well. But they'll let those out there, because anytime the ones below says, well, we having a struggle down here, we can't do this. They say, well, look at so-and-so over there. Look at that big mansion he stays in. Look how well he's doing. You can get there too, And it's
right.
And everybody, Bob, just like in the Great Gatsby book, the father tells the son, so you got to remember, son, everybody has not had the advantages, and our do not have the talents and the gifts that the other one has,
Right.
And that's what these people that do have these talents, these gifts, and we've had the Boule around since the turn of the 20s, I believe, or maybe before then, 1910, somewhere when they first came out. It was around that time. Because they're the oldest, the Boule have the oldest black frat in the country, Bob. So they've been around, and I think that started somewhere around 1910. But they try to separate and put themselves way above the other blacks, and they won't let their kids associate with anybody but other Boulets, and they even try to arrange that, the relationships there, which is the same thing that these other people do in the Arabic and the Indian communities, and maybe even in the Caucasoid communities, But even so, these blacks like that, if they for once in their lifetime came together and said, we gotta pull these other blacks up, we gotta build up our communities so we all can flow to the top. You know what I mean? We all can get the respect and the dignity that we need, because unless the how that biblical saying go, Bob, unless the lesser of my brothers don't have what don't get the respect, if they get less respect than I do, a lot. I mean, when they get less respect, it's always going to flow back up to me because I'm going to get that same type of uh, denigration and looked upon badly by the mainstream society. So I mean, how can we correct that? Well, we reach down and we help these other brothers down there to come up. Maybe they won't
All
get to
right.
where I am, but at least we're gonna give them a chance to get up where they are up, and they are more, or they behave appropriately, they act appropriately, and they become where their kids can go on up and become a boule. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the way they got to think, man. And otherwise, I don't care where we go in this world, Bob. We're gonna always be the downtrodden, unless we not only have to do it like in the United States here, but it has to be something that we have to emphasize throughout the world. So I mean, that's my take on it, Bob. And
Well, you know something that I was thinking about this past weekend, because I watch the golf match every weekend, the PGA, and you don't have that many blacks on the golf tour. But this is what occurred to me. Ever since I've been watching golf matches, and I've been doing that for probably 50 years or so now, going all the way back to Arnold Palmer and well, just a whole host of them. Uh, and I remember one year I went out to I was a sophomore in high school, and they had the U.S. Open at Oakland Hills Country Club out in Birmingham, and I was walking around the fence. I was by myself, and I was getting ready to climb the fence, and this guy drove up in a Mercedes. I think this is the first time I'd ever seen a car like this. And this Caucasoid, he drove up and said, "Hey, young fella, you going to the golf match?" And I I said, "Oh, no, sir." He said, "Oh, yes, you are. Come on over here. I want to show you something." A guy gave me a ticket because he was a club member of Oakland Hills Country Club. He said, "This will get you in the whole operation. You can go into clubhouse, you can go into wherever, and plus you'll be able to get something to eat." And I thought, wow. I said, "Oh, well, thank you, sir." So I went in and with this ticket, and they would stamp it. And I didn't go into the dining room, but I did go into one of the little off places where they had the little lunches. It got me something to eat. But my point is this: I've been watching golf and engaged in golf all my life. Oh, well, not all my life, but a great part of my life. And these last few months or weeks, I've been watching the golf tournaments. And I remember when Tiger Woods and some of the older guys, older black guys, Jim Dent and people like that, when they were playing, you'd have maybe, I think perhaps the most I've ever seen at a golf match is maybe 20 or 30 black people out there in the crowd when I was there. But today, I look at these crowds, and my point is that the whites, they didn't have anything to do with you. You were just another spectator, and you just happened to be there. They didn't try to engage you in conversation, and they didn't say, "Hey, what do you think of Tiger Woods?" or blah blah blah. No, there was none of that. So there was no natural camaraderie. Well, today I see fewer black people at these golf tournaments, and but the whites are still there, and the whites are still cheering the whites. the Caucasoids. What does all that mean, that ranting mean? Well, it just shows me that we live in a society that is a Caucasoid society, and that the Negroid is a second class resident in this society, and it's not going to change.
Right, Bobby. Maybe we'll do a video on about a particular country in Africa and how things over there are developing. And a lot of people don't realize. I mean, they should be, but a lot still don't know. You mention Africa to them, and they think you have cursed them out, or something, and they don't know what a beautiful continent that is, and what beautiful countries they have over there. And I would hope and pray, and I am hoping and praying, that one day it will be a United States of Africa. That would now give us, like you talked about those meetings there in Lithuanian, those meetings, Bob, are for the European countries. Europeans, by designation, they may have some Negroids and Arabsoids and Mongoloids living there, but European is purely white people. And that's what they are. Just as the countries of Africa, they have Indians and various other cultures, racial groups living in those countries. But that is what we need, a United States of Africa. So when we, and I mean we, I'm talking about the Africans, have their summits, it can be right there in Rwanda or the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. And they could and these places now, Bob, are growing. They're becoming much more modern than a lot of people think they would think they would be. They still have their villages and people living out, but so do we. We have our Appalachians here. We have our people living out in the rural areas of the deep South. And so it's really no difference if you really want to look at it like that. I mean, you got the wealth is just in those countries right now, in the European countries and some parts of the United States. I mean, even though we said we were the number one, but sometimes you drive around, Bob, it doesn't look like number one. You know what I mean? When you compare it to other countries in Europe, or even in some countries in Africa or Asia, But when the Africans come together and they can say, hey, we are United States of Africa, let's hold our summit here, let's talk about things, then I believe that the Africans in the diaspora, they will be filled with pride, and many will go back to Africa and to help build that country and to do things over there. And or if they decide they want to stay outside of Africa, then they will visit there and be entertained there. Because Africa, man, is beautiful. You go to the Lake Victoria over there, and you just never seen it. And there are so many places over there that, Bob, that you would not be beautiful. You got to remember, that is the continent that's civilization started at, Bob. Man started there. They had their rough times because of imperialism, but they're coming back, Bob. They will be back. Remember that, people. And I would have, Bob, you think that's funny, Bob? They will be back.
Right. Well, I sure hope so.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Bob. But I will come up with something that we're going to touch on one of those cities and show some things, countries over in Africa. and show some things about Africa and make.
Yeah, well, your original topic, that Tulsa situation, that's just a travesty of justice, and it's a travesty of not only for the black Negroid in America, but it's a travesty for America because, like you say, America presents itself as this pristine environment when in fact it's nothing but a garbage can.
Right, and this is why I talked about Africa, because you said that nothing will ever come of that. That's what your belief is, and you may
Right.
very well be right about nothing. We may never get any reparations, and nothing going to happen there. But what we
Right.
can do, we can work amongst ourselves, Bob. And when I get off of this here call here, I've got something I want you to take a look at tonight with me
Okay.
and see if this could be the beginning of something, of something that can help blacks to get a foothold into the economics of this country here, much more so than where we are right now, and get this base building where we have things that where blacks can go and get money and be able to start their own businesses and enterprises, just like they used to have their own Wall Street in Tulsa. And we've had
Sure.
other places like Atlanta. Atlanta still has a lot of things, and people don't realize this. But when Mayor Jackson became the mayor of Atlanta, he did a lot of set-asides and things there that make sure that blacks were able to get those contracts out there to build the Atlanta Hartford Airport, as well as getting other contracts in the city of Atlanta. And it made a lot of blacks millionaires down there, Bob.
Yes.
I'm telling you that right now. But no one else has duplicated that, and that kind of filters down to many blacks in that city. You know, there was more black businesses. I think Atlanta had become something like the Wall Street for blacks. You know.
Sure.
And there's a lot of black businesses in that area, but then again, there's a lot of black businesses throughout the United States. They're just not organized to that point where they are able to exert any power. You follow me, Bob?
Oh, sure. I mean, at 10 million people is a lot of people. I mean, that's more people out of one race than there are in the entire state of Michigan. So if you got 10 million people that are doing well, that are middle and upper middle class and upper class because they are millionaires and multimillionaires, you got a pretty good representation of of your race in that group. But that other 75, I mean that other 75% or 30 million, they're well, we because I consider myself a part of that. We're out here living hand to mouth, and that's all right. I mean, at least we're alive.
Well, we gotta do better than that, Bob. And I just continue to keep, and I ask the people to keep these three survivors of the Tulsa Massacre, keep them in your prayers. Pray
Yes.
for them. And we pray that the judicial system will do the right thing in this country, as they have done for other ethnic groups in this country, like the Jewish people, the Indians. And a lot of people don't know this, Bob, but do you know that the Seminoles Indians in Florida, they own Hard Rock Hard Rock casinos now? You know that, right?
No, I didn't know that.
And they fly their own private jets called the Hard Rock Seminoles.
Oh, okay.
So that's where we want to get, Bob, and we can do it. if we work together, because they are definitely working together, even though they have their own reservation. They got several different reservations down here in Florida. And the main one, I think, is they got 3 different ones, but the one that's in the Everglades, in the middle of the Everglades. But we can do that, Bob. And I want to, again, thank people for coming, tuning in and listening. And I hope that you're getting something out of what Bob and I are trying to share with you through our own experiences and through our own being alive, you know, and for this length of time that we have. So I'm going to end this with asking you to subscribe and share comments with us and share the video with other people so they can learn these things and learn and offer some suggestions on things that we can do as a people to better our race and help our other ones. I'm definitely trying to do those things, and I know Bob is as well. So people, I want to thank you again, and Bob, have a